All right, everybody. Welcome into the Lucky Shots podcast. I am Ricky Larson, again joined by Dylan Corbett, and this is the Lucky Bets. So for Dylan, you can go ahead and catch his podcast on Corbett's Corner. What are all of your YouTube channels or podcast channels?
Sure. So you can catch everything in one spot. It's just my name, Dylan, Dylan, Corbett, Corbet. That's where it's kind of the umbrella for the one channel for all the podcasts. But yeah, I try and do sports talk as many days as I can throughout the week, anything I find interesting, etc. We get our weekly picks out on CORBETs, usually dropping each Thursday night for consumption on Friday, as you'll be able to catch our picks here. Which we went 3-2 yesterday. So how about that? Yesterday for the week, and we cashed our underdog of the week. So feeling good, better than my picks on my podcast. So I'm giving you the good stuff here, Ricky.
Good stuff. Good stuff. You can follow him on Twitter. He's got quite a few. You got at Dylan_Corbett, at Cor COR_bet, or at Corbett Corner.
Yeah, and I retweet everything on my main page, so real easy to find there.
kind of can just find him wherever, follow all of those. And then you can listen to his podcast wherever, I believe, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Apple Pod, Spotify, YouTube, whatever your preference.
All righty, sounds good. So let's hop right in. What'd you think of last week? How'd everything go for you? And what'd you like?
I was pumped to see the Falcons not be the worst team in the NFL. That would be both football teams in New York, I think. So they took care of the Giants. How about your Broncos? Teddy Two Shoes just being absolutely a cover machine. Broncos have that in the bag. They're leading the division. I think the most shocking thing is Chiefs fail to cover once again, and they lose outright to the Chargers.
Yeah, what is it, 1-2 now? Sitting at the very bottom of the division.
Yes.
If somebody come up to you before the season started and said, "Hey, Dylan, there's this like real sweet bet. Week 3, the Chiefs are going to be bottom of the division." What would you have said to that?
I would have said the odds would have been pretty damn high. That would have been you would have gotten your money for that bet, certainly. I kind of talked about this on my podcast I dropped yesterday. Was the NFC West, or excuse me, the AFC West has really caught up to the Chiefs. Like, it looked like they were with Mahomes. They were going to rule the decade for 10 years. And then all of a sudden you get Herbert in there. Gruden figures it out with Derek Carr. And the Broncos made a really great acquisition in Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, usually they hang on to the quarterbacks too long. They've messed up their quarterback experiments with Case Keenum, Flacco, you name it. But they finally struck gold, it appears, with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the beauty of all sports. When you have somebody up on that high tier, it forces everybody else to get better.
Sure.
Because you got to get better to be able to compete, and we're finally seeing, the AFC West, those teams are getting better because of Patrick Mahomes and how good the Chiefs are. So it's just nice to see. And I mean, sure, the Broncos, it's been pretty easy 3 games. But hey,
right.
We'll take those 3 wins. More impressively to me would be the Raiders. They beat some not slouch teams, looking pretty good.
And they fought through adversity against the Dolphins. They could have easily just rolled over and had one of those flop NFL games at home where no one expects you to lose, and you do. But they fought through it. They win. I mean, that's an interesting team. Ruggs is a dangerous weapon. Carr is figuring it out. Again, they always seem to fizzle out, I feel like, towards midseason. But, hey, you got to give them props where props are due. And certainly Gruden has earned that contract so far. He's moved the team to Vegas. He's got them nationally on the map. That 10-year deal for $100 million seems like it seems almost like a bargain for bringing Gruden back to the NFL.
Oh, for sure. And he's a guy you love to watch, coach. Mm-hmm. So one of the bigger storylines coming up this week, Tom Brady returns to New England, him and Belichick. I don't know if that's going to interfere with anything else you'll talk about later, but that's something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, it's one of my exciting things to look forward to this week. It's the Sunday Night Football back in Foxborough. I was almost going to go to this game. I thought it would have been super cool. But I mean, The Patriots aren't my team. It's a lot of travel. Foxborough is kind of like an hour away from Boston, so it's a real nightmare to get to. But that in Sunday Night Football, I'd enjoy just as much watching on my couch. I mean, I'm going to get the best view of kind of Brady and Belichick. They're already getting quotes out. Like the lead up to this week, I think each day is interesting, certainly with Brady, Belichick, Brady coming off the Super Bowl win the season after he departs, Belichick's regime. Everyone's got their eyes on this game.
All righty. So without further ado, let's hop into the best betting lines according to Dylan Corbett this week. Dylan, go ahead and take it away.
Well, I lost on this one for last week's episode because I was on the Seahawks and Vikings fans. You got it done. The Vikes got it done. So again, this is a team that could be 3-0. There was the missed kick in Arizona, a chip shot. I mean, just a total Vikings way to lose. You probably could have won against the Bengals, who look pretty damn decent in week one. So the Browns look great. They're coming off this huge dominant win over the Bears. It wasn't even a contest, right? So now they're coming into the Viking Stadium, which is, you saw that place get loud on Sunday, and it's going to be extra loud, I think, coming this Sunday too. I might see if I end up going to this game here in the Twin Cities. So I like the Vikings +2. Let's see if Kirk Cousins, who seriously looks like an MVP so far, 8 or 9 touchdowns, no picks. The yards per attempt are up. The completion percentage is like 74%. It's absolutely insane. I think the Vikings can win this one. +2. We'll take the points.
Very interesting. I mean, you saw Justin Jefferson finally kind of get into the mix of things. I mean, he's been getting targeted, but, finally got a touchdown.
Right.
Alexander Madison didn't look terrible last week, in place.
He's one of the best, him and Pollard, right? As you saw last night, you can just plug them in and play.
For sure. And, the Browns.
They're a good team.
They're good.
Yeah.
Regardless of who they're playing, honestly, their offense is solid. Defense is real dang good. I mean, doesn't matter who you're playing. 9 sacks is 9 sacks. And
oh my goodness,
that's a heck of a game.
Yeah, I felt bad for Fields. Franchise record 4.5 sacks for Myles Garrett. He now is the NFL leader, right? Because he's at 5.5. And Chandler Jones, who had 5 sacks in week one, still hasn't had one since, I'm pretty sure. And Jadeveon Clowney, which that caught me by surprise. I'm like, oh yeah, he's a Brown. That's right. So he's on the opposite side. That's a good team. Baker, even with or without Odell, that's a solid team with Chubb, Kareem Hunt. It's going to be a great game. The only reason I'm on the Vikings is because that's a tough place to play. Usually you see home favorites when they're in their friendly confines, but this is Vegas giving the Browns a lot of credit. And I'm seeing if maybe the Vikings are people are sour on them. Maybe the public's sour on them because they look more at the record and not how they got to 1-2.
For sure. All right. What's next?
Next play. You're going to like this one. How about the Broncos -1.5? They're going to get their first real test. You mentioned they haven't played anyone. They played both football teams in New York, the Jets and the Giants. -1.5 against the Ravens, who probably should have lost to Detroit. The altitude, how's that going to affect Lamar Jackson, who is a heavy runner for his team? He's obviously one of the most hurt backfields with him. He's not going to be able to kind of stifle the load or separate the load from that. Teddy Bridgewater, a cover machine. Vic Fangio, I wasn't a believer, but hey, he's got that defense playing this year. I like Fangs and the Broncos at home, only -1.5. You guys got a team this year. For sure.
And I mean, the defense, I really like the defense. It's one of my favorite things about the Broncos most of the time. Now the offense is starting to catch up, but you have Von Miller looking real good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Looking like he's back in form.
Chubb can't stay out of his own way with the injuries. Tough news there, but you'll just plug and play someone else.
Right. And lost the middle of that defense with Josie Jewell. Did pretty all right without him last week. Alexander Johnson is a stud. But the Broncos offensively did lose KJ Hamler.
And Jerry Jeudy's on the IR. It's kind of surprising how you guys are doing this.
Yeah, he had stepped up for Jerry Jeudy. But again, he wasn't getting a lot of volume. Yeah. And with both of the running backs in Denver, I think they stick more run heavy, and Baltimore does not necessarily is the best rushing defense. So.
And the Broncos they learned from, okay, it's not about just maybe we have a poor offensive line, but you have Bridgewater who now can make plays out of that. Before you just had Flacco folding like a hat rack. He couldn't move. But now you've got somebody mobile that can extend plays, and Tim Patrick might be one of the most like underestimated receivers in the NFL. And I got to give a shout out to my boy Justin Simmons, right? Boston College's own.
Yes, sir. Love Justin Simmons. That the secondary looks real good, and again, Ravens don't throw the ball very well. Lamar he threw a pick, right? Kind of.
Yeah, he always has one errant kind of interception. I still am not sold on Lamar Jackson. I know he's an MVP and the rushing attack is real, the threat there, but he still makes these decisions a little Jameis Winston-esque.
For sure. And if the Broncos offense can capitalize on the plays that the defense will make, I think the Broncos have a good chance.
For my third pick, a team that I was on last night, unfortunately, they got routed. They looked bad. The Eagles. I like them this week because I'm giving a little bit more stock to the Cowboys after what I saw last night. It looks a lot better now what they did to the Chargers and the Bucks. And now you just blow out the Eagles, who held tight with the 49ers and blew out the Falcons. So I think the Cowboys, with Dak Prescott being back and healthy, obviously make the Micah Parsons too is electrifying that defense. Diggs had the pick six. He's an electrifying quarterback. So I'm doing a little bounce back like I did with the Lions, who looked awful in prime time against Green Bay and then come back and almost beat the Ravens. I'm hoping for something similar here with the Eagles because they're hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, who we've talked about at length. They have not covered a single game. So let's see if we can get the hook Eagles plus 7.5 here at home.
For sure. And, it was questions I had about the Eagles, coming off of the game against the Falcons. They were like first in all categories, and then you saw it kind of slip the week after, and then this week Dallas just went crazy. Mm-hmm. And Zeke went into Zeke mode. He looked like Zeke Elliott from old this past week, and that offense for the Eagles just didn't look very good. Never really got a rhythm going, but you can credit that to the defense for Dallas. But again, I think a bounce back definitely is in order for them.
Too many points, and people are still giving the Chiefs a lot of credit. Like they have not looked like the Chiefs. The defense is not good. Mahomes is, I didn't like the no-look interception. I understand the no-look pass is great, and maybe the receiver should have caught it, but he wasn't expecting it. It was a little behind him, and it's an interception. It's like, all right, guys, we understand you're good. Go out and win your games.
Right, exactly. It's kind of the argument of everybody's like, oh, the Broncos have only won against bad teams. But those are the games you're supposed to go out and win.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are in games where they're supposed to go out and win, and they're not winning.
Right.
So I think the Eagles got a chance to make some sort of upset this week, is for sure.
Yeah, certainly. That's something to look at. The Chargers as 6.5-point dogs just took out the Chiefs too, and I believe that was at Arrowhead. This is in Philadelphia. My last play, a team that is not going to win. That's the New York Football Jets. Let's do it. We got to lay the points with the Titans minus 7.5. Jets have not covered a single game. They just got blown out by the Broncos. They got blown out the week before, and that was after keeping it close against Carolina. I don't think this team's good. It is in New York, but they're probably going to be hearing more boos at home than they are with the Titans coming in, seriously. So I like the Titans to roll. I think that's still a very solid team.
Is there any sort of bright spot you see from this game, or is it just going to be a shellacking on one side?
I think it's going to be a shellacking. It's going to be a lot. You could just get a quick lead. The only reason this Colts-Tennessee game was close was because they had like -3 turnover differential, and they won by 9, which was like one of the crazier games in NFL history. So get a couple touchdowns and then just run it with Henry. Who's going to stop him? Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot a la the Broncos-Jets game, just over before it even started.
One thing I do want to say about the Jets, CJ Mosley could go out there and lay some hits. Melvin Gordon had a kind of free shot into the end zone, and then all of a sudden he was laying on his back. CJ Mosley came and ran him over. So I think that'll be a little fun matchup to watch. Is Derrick Henry big and powerful against CJ Mosley having a running head start at him. So maybe we'll see some good pops this week, and
Yeah,
that'll
some
be,
good hits,
what we can look
possibly.
forward to in that game.
Wrapping up with the underdog of the week, which we cashed this past week. Falcons coming back at home against the Washington football team. I'm biased. I'm a Falcons fan, but the football team doesn't look good. They just got torched by, I know, probably arguably the better team in the NFL with the Bills, but they didn't look great against the Giants. They did not look great against the Chargers. Falcons have a potential here after getting busted by the Eagles and then blown out by the Buccaneers. They get a win, usually in a game that they typically lose as a franchise. Road trip win over the Giants, coming back home, taking on the football team without Fitzpatrick. Heineke hasn't looked great. Let's see if we can roll it over 2 in a row with our Falcons.
This is non-actual real football talk. Heineke hasn't been bad for fantasy, though.
Yes.
He's going out throwing for a lot of yards. He's
because he's
always
garbage time, right? He's got to have to come back from behind. He's going to get his stats, not unlike Jalen Hurts last night, who almost kind of saved some people's weeks.
Yeah, I noticed when I was looking at the stats from that game, they outgained the Cowboys in total yards and had like 303 passing yards, and Dallas only had like maybe 260, but
right.
Dak also had 4 touchdowns?
Yeah, and it was just turnovers, costly turnovers Dak didn't even have to take the field because there was the pick 6, and yeah.
For sure. All right, so now we're going to hop into some DFS players that you yourself would want to bet on if you were to build a lineup for this week. So we'll start with your quarterback. Who's that?
Okay.
Guy?
Yeah, so looking at some DFS kind of budget plays, don't want to, Mahomes, I played last week and he was fine, but let's see if we can get a little bit more value throughout the lineup here. I'm looking at Derek Carr, who leads the league in passing yards. He's only 5,900 right now, and he's 100 yards ahead of Brady. Like, this guy's going to get his stats. They're against the Chargers. I could see this being a shootout. I like Derek Carr to anchor my lineup at quarterback.
I like that. I honestly like Carr for most things. I think because, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's had either 300 or very close to 300 yards passing each of the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, more than, I'm pretty sure.
Good. So quarterback is a place I would spend up on, but you won't have to spend up too much. Aaron Rodgers at 6,800.
Yeah.
Playing Pittsburgh, not looking good in any sort of way. And then you just saw Joe Burrow go out, and he's been kind of struggling so far this season. Looked pretty good against the Steelers, and you had Aaron Rodgers go out against a very good 49ers team and put up some great numbers. So I think Aaron Rodgers here, it's a bit of a spend up, but it's still decent budget as compared to Mahomes for $8,000.
Right. Rodgers, you usually see him in Mahomes territory. So 6,800 is definitely solid, and he can outperform Mahomes. My running back, I'm sticking with another guy we got for a bargain last week, and that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's bouncing back from that costly fumble back in week 1. He kind of went off this past week. Look what Zeke Elliott, that we aforementioned, did to the Eagles last night. I'm not shocked or surprised if Edwards-Helaire is able to do similar things against Philly. Only 5,400. So, DFS not really still respecting his performance. I think you can hit him for a couple of weeks in a row here.
For sure. Then at running back, it's kind of hard looking here at a lot of these guys, but I'm pretty sure I chose him last week on your podcast, but Cordero Patterson against Washington. I'm at the point in my fantasy teams where I have Cordero Patterson on my bench. And in one league, at least, I am putting him in. And in my other league, I am seriously considering. And he's sitting here at 4,900 against Washington, who their defense – I've talked up their defense a lot in the offseason.
Yeah.
They're close to the bottom. And especially since this runs in PPR, he gets a lot of passing work and outscores Mike Davis. He's a guy that you can go out for 4,900, not break your bank, and have some good production.
Yeah, that's a great play and a great point about the Washington football team. It kind of shows that defense doesn't exactly translate year over year exactly. It does look like it has Chase Young can't do it all. It looks like it has fallen off. I lost my train of thought there. Oh yes, Cordero Patterson. I believe he was our leading receiver in the win over the Giants, and you could plug him in at running back. He's going to get touches in the backfield as well. They look to him in the red zone, even from the run. So yeah, that's definitely a good play there, and you can obviously shift them throughout your lineup. Receiver, I'm looking at the 6,000 mark with Amari Cooper and Dak back, certainly helping his stock. So I like Cooper there, still relatively cheap, and a guy that is just still amassing targets for a pass heavy. I mean, that offense is pretty potent for the Dallas Cowboys.
For sure. I'm looking at a guy who just finally got his way back into the lineup last week, Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
Sitting at 5,800. He's going against Minnesota, who, like we kind of talked about, they're a little underrated. They go out there and they compete, but they don't necessarily hold opposing offenses to, bad games. And with Landry going to be out, he's on the IR, so you don't really have another passing option besides in the backfield where you'd go to Hunt or sometimes Chubb. So I think Odell, and he looked really good this last week, especially first game back. You saw Baker was like, all right, get him the ball. So I think he's a very good play at 5,800.
Yeah, certainly against the Vikings cornerbacks too. I know they bounced back a little bit against the Seahawks, but that's a solid play. Here's a super value play for the tight end because it's basically Travis Kelce and everyone else, right? And you're just throwing darts. So my big fantasy draft here, it's like, late rounds, and I see the Pat Freiermuth, and like almost as a joke, I'm like, all right, give me Pat Freiermuth. And I changed my team names to Fighting Freiermuth. I'm trying to trade him to everyone. Let's play him this week. He found the end zone. He's only 3,100. Like if you're overspending throughout your lineup and you just need to plug in a guy that might get that red zone TD, Patty Freiermuth's your guy. Let's see if we play him and stream him this week.
He's a guy that if you played him last week over Hawkinson, over Gronkowski, which is what I did, he outscored them.
Yes.
And my favorite thing, you might possibly change your team name to this. I watch the Fantasy Footballers. I don't know if you know who they are.
Heard of them, follow them, yes.
Yeah. They love Pat Freiermuth. Only because they get to say the Muth is Luth.
Yes, yeah. No, I literally only roster him so I could have my name somewhat involved to him.
Right. So for my tight end, we're going back to that Atlanta-Washington matchup.
Okay.
Not taking Kyle Pitts.
Oof.
Taking Logan Thomas at 4,900. He's a guy that's been on my team the past 2 years. I haven't played him the past couple of weeks, chasing Jared Cook and those kind of matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Logan Thomas, regardless, especially with Taylor Heineke, he'll find the end zone at least once, and his targets go anywhere from 5 to 10. So I think he's got a lot to look forward to this week against Atlanta. It's a game where they should, throw the ball quite a bit because they just do with Taylor Heineke, I guess. So he's a guy that I think could put up quite a few points for you this week. And again, if you want to spend up elsewhere, he's less than 5,000.
Yeah, Logan Thomas found the end zone late in garbage time against the Bills. Kyle Pitts, I don't think Arthur Smith has really figured out how to use him yet. He was kind of visibly absent in the Giants game. And it was weird, too, that game, because you thought, okay, maybe it's offense, Giants, Falcons, two terrible teams just scrapping it out. And it was just it was a weird 17-14 game. I think the opposite with, who knows, but the Falcons certainly don't have a great defense. So we'll see. It's probably going to be a shootout in Atlanta.
These are my thoughts with Kyle Pitts. As athletic as he is, as big as he is, just put him out on the field and put him somewhere in like a slot position, a little flanked off the line of scrimmage, and just work those favorable matchups. He's going to be against linebackers who aren't as fast as he is, not as athletic. Just give the guy a shot, target him more,
Right.
pound that into Matt Ryan's head. And honestly, Falcons, you got nothing else to lose. Just throw the ball 50 times a game. I'd
Yeah,
love to see it.
seriously.
You'd love to see it. Everybody would like to see it because you aren't running the ball effectively. So just
Yeah.
throw it a bunch.
I agree with that. I hope they can get it done. I also hope your play cashes with, I'm sure Thomas will eviscerate our defense.
And then at the flex spot, so you can put running back, wide receiver, tight end here. These are normally your budget players anyway. So who do you think would be that best budget player if you spend up elsewhere?
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways you can go. I'm wondering if maybe since I've got it kind of on the cheap, if I might spend a little bit more here on the flex spot. But again, yeah, I mean, I went with Mixon last week. I've already got Cooper. Yeah, Mixon didn't really do anything great. You know what? I've got Pat Freiermuth in the bag. I'm hoping that he'll get that red zone touchdown. I think I'm going to flex Travis Kelce and just bank on high floor, lots of targets, lots of yards, probably going to be a shootout in Philly. I think I'm going to sneak in Travis Kelce there since I've got my lineup relatively low.
I like that. So last week on your show, or not even on your show, this was afterwards. I had sent you my couple of lineups on DraftKings. The news of T. Higgins being out,
yeah, that hurt me as
Jamar
well.
Chase in a great spot. On DraftKings, he was still super cheap, and I don't understand why they continue to let him be super cheap.
Yeah,
but he was my flex play. So my advice there, I guess, would just be look at what the options are because you never know who's sitting down there for super cheap that you're like, hold on, a guy ahead of him is injured or the situation for him is really good this week, and plug him in there because Chase, I think, was one of my highest scoring people on my team, and I got him for probably the cheapest out of anybody else.
Yep. No, I totally agree with that sentiment. Is you always find these guys that could go off. Darius Slayton's a guy. I know he's injured, but he's a guy that always has a weird kind of go off game. Tim Patrick's a guy that I look at as always a reliable play that you can find in those lower depths of prices.
And I'm going to preface all of this with, don't listen to me. I've got the kiss of death or something because anytime I'm like, all right, I'm high on this player, I'm going to play him. I'm going to cash in on him. They get hurt. Sterling Shepard this past week really just hurt my feelings. Hopefully he's back soon because not only did I bet on him in 2 DraftKings lineups, I also put him into my normal lineup. Luckily, he didn't sink me, but so anything I say, take with caution, okay?
Of course.
All righty. Anything else for you?
No, I've got my let's see. That's my DFS lineup. I've got things I'm looking forward to. We talked about Cleveland Vikings. I'm kind of excited to see which team's for real or not. Are the Vikings going to say, okay, our record's not who we actually are? We're going to win a really solid back-to-back solid games at home as dogs. Or is Cleveland going to assert themselves of, hey, the Chiefs look down. Everyone's talking about the Bills. Why aren't you talking about us? So I'm looking forward to that. And we already talked about Brady making a return to Foxborough. The game that I'm going to be most interested to kind of flip through on the red zone is Arizona Rams, both undefeated divisional game. Kyler Murray looking like an MVP. Matthew Stafford looking like an MVP. Kingsbury McVay. I think this is going to be an awesome game.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm most looking forward to. And the problem is it's not even a primetime game. It's a late afternoon game.
Right.
In my opinion,
it was kind of like Bucks Rams this past weekend.
Yeah. In my opinion, I'm like, cool storyline. Brady goes back to New England, but that's not going to be a game. Who gives a shit?
Right.
No,
exactly. That was my point. Yeah. We're going to see what Brady's, emotions look like when he's back on the field for the first time. And then it's going to be, 48-3 and it's over.
Yeah. And he's going to be playing pissed off because they played so, not good last week. But yeah, I mean, I want to see just how good both of these offenses are and see where those defenses also sit. The Rams tout a really good defense most of the time. You have Arizona, who week 1 looked really good. Week
Yeah.
2 looked really good. Last week looked pretty good.
Mhm.
So where are those defenses going to stack up against two of the better offenses in the league? A lot's going to come out of that in this game. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I agree. I think these are both going to be playoff contenders. I thought the Cardinals really looked like they could sneak. I mean, it's a loaded division, but
Yeah.
that could be the team that makes that step from good team last year, missed out on the playoffs. Maybe they crack through this year.
Hot take real quick on that division.
Yes.
How many of those teams make it? All 4? 3 of them? There's
Uh, I think the Seahawks might be holding the bag and get left out. I can't say that because the 49ers haven't really impressed me either. I wonder if there's going to, I mean, Trey Lance scores again, right? In the very limited role that they're using. When are they going to call for him to take over for Jimmy G? I mean, Jimmy G's fine, but it's kind of, 49er fans are getting a little bit complacent with what they have currently, and especially knowing that they've got perhaps the future sitting behind them, looking good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when Lance came in, scored that touchdown right before the half, I looked at the guy I was watching the game with at work. I said, well, that's it. Trey Lance should be the starter the rest of the season.
Right. Yeah. No kidding.
And,
A lot of people felt that same sentiment.
yeah. And then Jimmy G came out, and I was like, okay, I guess not.
Yeah. Kyle Shanahan did not feel the same way, I guess.
Yeah. All righty. But that's it for today's show, folks. We want to thank Dylan for being in. Always enjoy having you. A lot of fun, good insight. I'm gonna go put all my bets in after we get done.
Let's keep it going.
For sure. And then again, you can catch all of his shows on anywhere you listen to podcasts, on YouTube, Dylan Corbett.
Yep.
And you can follow him on Twitter at all of those different places. You want me to read those off again for you?
No, I can plug myself here. Appreciate it, Ricky. And we'll have you on as well on my podcast level. We've been kind of get the betting atmosphere onto your network, getting some much more fantasy football advice onto mine. So it's been good stuff. Dylan, Dylan, Corbett, Corbet. That's where you can find me on basically YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and then there's just an underscore in between my first and last name on Twitter where you can find most of my stuff there. For those of you that tweet. Appreciate it, Ricky.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, go listen to the podcast version. If you're listening to the podcast version, hop on over to YouTube. All the links for everything are in the header for the YouTube page. Thank you, Dylan, and good luck, everyone. Good bets, good money. See you later.